Q&As. We didn't get to these last week because Sherwood Strauss was just, giving us quote after quote, and Pro was hanging shit on him, and we got lost in the shuffle there. But a few good ones this week, Pro. Yeah, what do you got?
Yeah, Strauss thought he was getting paid by the hour last week, by the way. No one fucking told him. But go ahead.
Yeah, it's like when you get a 1 hour massage and it goes for 3 hours and they're like, oh, but you take it anyway.
Yeah.
Hi, Andrew and Pro. I've been loving the podcast. Haven't missed an episode yet. Also a huge Knicks supporter. Well, unlucky for you because they're gone. Chucked a sickie to watch game 2. So the guy took a sick day. Chucked a sickie is a sick day, Pro. My question, watching live NBA games is great, but also frustrating. I've had my missus get pissed at me because I say I just want to watch to the end of this game. It's only got 5 minutes left, and then the 5 minutes end up taking 15 minutes with late game fouls and timeouts. What can they do to stop late game fouls, and could they limit timeouts in the entire last quarter to 2 per team, or would that burn teams out down the stretch? Feel free to shorten this, but just wanted your thoughts, and that's Josh from Adelaide. Look, I think it's an issue. There is an issue the NBA has looked at. I mean, the Hacker Shack rule was tweaked because of that, where they had teams that were hacking guys early in quarters. They noticed that TV viewership was changing the channel. People got sick of watching it. And look, the games at the end of an NBA game, that's just something you got to deal with. There is a bit of a chess game there with timeouts, so I wouldn't really shorten them. But Pro, I don't really think there's many changes you can make in a late game situation. They're just, with the foul game and you kind of want it to run smoothly, but at the same time, that's going to take more time. But you want that late game situation where someone can hit a buzzer beater too, and that's the beauty of that late game. If you take away the fouling game, if a team's down, let's say 5 and they're intentionally fouling, which in FIBA is hard to do because if they deem the foul intentional, which generally is when you're trying to hack, it's 2 on the ball back. So it's harder to do in international. But I like the drama of a late game situation, timeouts back and forth, advance the ball, and then someone steals a game on the buzzer. How do you see all that, bro?
Yeah, I agree with you. It's not really, I mean, they keep trying to tweak, and look, they do the competition committee meetings and things like that. They're always trying to find different ways and new ways to do things. But I agree with you. I mean, believe me, it is boring, especially when these things get drawn out. But I don't think there's a lot. I like the last second shot. Obviously, everybody else does too, and the drama of that. And, but there's not really a lot they can do. They'll probably come up with some new things, as the years go on, but I don't think there's really a lot that you can do to it. Plus, like with the not only the challenges, but just trying to, go to the film. I think they just want to try to get everything right, and they get their the ear to the ground with trying to make it best they can for the fans. I think teams scoring 179 points a game is good enough, and giving up 176, but like in the last couple of minutes, I agree. There's really not a lot you could do.
Yeah, there isn't. And that's the problem with the live game. Well, one thing I have liked the NBA have done, I don't know if you could catch much of them, but the condensed games, they're pretty cool.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, if you didn't have a chance to watch a live game, you get home from work, what they do now is ESPN do it. They condense a full game within an hour. So they take out all this, all the bullshit back and forth, the reviews, all that stuff, and it's just the game. And that appeals to some people because they just want to watch basketball. They don't want to do all the in-betweens, but the only problem with that is you can't do that live. So if you're watching the live product, you just got to deal with the bullshit along the way. And they're damned if they do, damned if they don't. As Pro said, if back in the day when there wasn't reviews and it's cost teams games, playoff series, and championships at times because there was a wrong call by a ref, you have fans carrying on about it for the whole next year, and talk show radios and radio shows and all that kind of stuff. So they've tried to fix that, and now it's the opposite. It's slowed the game down as a TV product. Even live, sometimes you're sitting there, it's become football-like where, there's a stoppage and a commercial and a review and fans are in the crowd like, what the hell's going on? So that's just something you got to deal with if you want that room for error gone. So thanks for that question, Josh. Next one, hello, Bogues and Pro. I'm lucky I have 2 Qs from a player who played against him, a coach, and whatever. Well, this was for last week, whatever your guest does, but we didn't get to our question. So we'll just say from a player who played against him and a coach that coached against him, which is you. Why do people not like Russell Westbrook? Players not like him, KD, fans, media. I'm not a fan, but curious nonetheless. And then he had one more question, which was Homicide said Nick Kyrgios could play in the NBL 1 level, which is our G League. Is that true? And if so, would it be like J. Cole in the Basketball Africa League? First off, I would not take anything that Corey Homicide Williams says seriously. It's very under-researched. Kyrgios loves his basketball, can play a little bit, but I think a little bit disrespectful to the guys at NBL 1 level because they still are semi-professionals, and I think it'd be, similar to that J. Cole type thing. I think Kyrgios could be out there and hit a shot every now and then, but to compete at a high level like that is tough. But how do you see the Westbrook thing?
He's an alpha dog, man. Like, he's a competitive dude. He's emotional. He doesn't fuck around, doesn't play mind games. He just he's all in your face 24/7. So for some people, especially today's player, it's not the easiest guy to like. He's flamboyant. They got that fashion shit that he does too. Might set people the wrong way, but he's just an aggressive guy. And that's not for everybody. Some people don't like that, and I understand that. Teammates, same thing. He's not afraid to speak his mind. And he's all competitive and he's all business. And yeah, sometimes that could probably be taken in the wrong way. And I could see that people didn't like him. Like I said, Kobe said he was the most competitive player that he's ever played against in his whole career. There hasn't been obviously besides MJ. He said he's the most competitive player he's ever played against in his whole career. And because he keeps coming at you and he keeps coming at you and he keeps coming at you. And he's a tough dude. And I could see that people sort of rubs that the wrong way. I'm sure you've had teammates, maybe not as talented, that was like that, but you probably ran into players like that. That was sort of the alpha dog, always yelling, always screaming, wanting to fight everybody 24/7, and just played like that. I could see why that happens. I love the guy. I mean, he's not a perfect player, but he does play hard and he competes. And he doesn't lay down. It doesn't matter if he's up 30 or down 30. He's a competitive dude. And you need guys like that on your team, especially in these days. What are your thoughts on him, Bogues?
Oh, it's the same thing. He's a kill everyone mentality guy. So there are guys that won't like him. I mean, I don't think it's so much a stigma as everyone hates him. I think it's just they know, NBA players in the regular season don't want to get hit. They don't want to grind. They don't want to get on the loose floor and loose ball on the floor and scuff their knees in a regular season game. And he's a guy that will demand that from you. So I think there's something that goes within that as well. Like, damn, I'm playing Westbrook. This dude, man, he's relentless, So I think that's a part of it. But I mean, he's a fiery dude. And from what I've heard off court, he's fantastic. But his public perception, his media, the way he handles himself, he's an aggressive, win-at-all-costs guy, and he doesn't give a shit what you think about him, and that's frowned upon in our league, unfortunately. Whereas, if he was the political, smile, kissing baby, shaking hands, then, we call him fake. So I'd rather him be on the other extreme, in my opinion. Yeah.
So you're saying you're going to downgrade homicide to manslaughter and say that, it's just that was sort of a little bit off, that guy can't play in the NBL?
Corey Homicide Williams is a street ball legend, self-proclaimed.
I've heard about him.
He's a street baller, but he's a commentator over here that just yells and screams, and doesn't really do a whole lot of research about numbers and whatnot. Like the other day, I'll give you an example. Illawarra's playing. Who were they playing the other night? Sydney.
So I'm going to call him. If you're not, let's use a new word, the new term. If you're not vibing with the way he does things, I'm going to downgrade him to. I'm not even going to call him homicide anymore. I'm calling him manslaughter. So go ahead. So manslaughter. He's saying what? The numbers were off on manslaughter?
No, I'll just give you an example. So I think it was the Kings. Oh, no, sorry. It was Illawarra played Perth, and he basically asked, Perth had the ball down 2. He asked if they would foul intentionally.
That's awesome.
So, and the other commentator's like, nah, they're not going to foul intentionally. They're up 2, man. They'll give them 2 free throws. and then he replied something like, "Oh no, I'm just asking." It's like, just he's not a analytics X's and O's basic numbers guy. He's more of a guy you watch to hear some screaming and yelling and some passion, and that's what he does. That's his go-to. That's what he do. That's what he do. One of those commentators.
So basically, he's the pro of Australia. Then he does over there what I do on this podcast. just scream, don't research anything, and just talk out of my
don't
ass.
lower yourself to those levels, bro. Don't lower. At least you do. He's an influencer though, so if you want to label yourself as an influencer pro, then by all means. But yeah, I mean, I don't think Kyrgios could play at a NBL level competitively a lot of minutes. I mean, maybe a J. Cole type role where he's getting a few minutes a game. But Kyrgios, I tell you what, bro, that guy loves basketball, man. I did that function with him at Bondi, and man, that guy just loves the game of basketball. He was sweating up a storm in his outfit, and then had to do photos after and change his clothes to do the photos, and crazy.
Yeah, that's what is he? Is he a player or is he an entertainer?
Nick Kyrgios, the tennis player. He's an Australian tennis player.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay.
He's a dude that like flips out and like just loses his shit mid game and serves underhand sometimes. I'm not sure if you know who that is.
No, I was a huge '90s. I was a huge '90s. What's it called? '90s tennis fan. Not as much today, except that, if like Wimbledon final or French Open final or something like that. But so he's like the Jimmy Connors Jimmy Connors is a fucking nut like that would scream at people and stuff and go all nuts. But
he cops a bit of shit over here. Cops a bit of shit over here because he's a call it as he sees it. He has had some games where he's somewhat just threatened to quit because umpire was screwing him, and so he's one of those. He's a fiery character. I think he's great for tennis.
McEnroe.
I think he's great for tennis.
Yeah.
He's a love-hate guy, and he's a guy that whether you love or hate him, you buy a ticket to see him. So, but loves basketball, man. Like he just would not stop talking to me about basketball, and we need, especially in Australia and the NBL, trying to get him down to some games. We need guys like that because they help promote the sport. Next question. Thanks for that one, Lockie. Next one is your first day in the Bay Area after the Monte Ellis trade. What transpired, and when was the difference when you started to see fans change their perception of you? That's from HKP. So when I got traded there, pro, was not a fan-friendly decision by all means. I mean, Monte Ellis was the fan favorite, even though they sucked. He was the fan favorite because he dropped 30, 40 a night. Small guy, electrifying, fun to watch. The elephant in the room was that Steph Curry was right next to him and not really getting a chance to shine, essentially. Monte was a guy that, his usage was the most on the team. He needed the ball. He kind of felt like he'd backed up a lot of those old veterans, Steven Jackson and whatnot back in the day, and he finally got his opportunity, and it was his team, as they say in the NBA. And so I got there, and Joe Lacob, I was hurt at the time, got there mid-season, and still remember they did a jersey retirement for Chris Mullin the week after or basically 5 days after I got traded there. So I ended up going to that game, and Joe Lacob had to go up and give, he basically gave the speech about presenting the jersey. They booed him the whole time, man. Like it was pretty brutal. You felt bad for Joe Lacob. You felt bad for Chris Mullin because it was his night, but the fans just booed every time he talked based on that trade. So it was safe to say they weren't happy with the trade, but I mean, what transpired, the rest was history. I think once they saw kind of what I brought, just with some toughness in the paint, shot blocking, screen setting, just doing stuff that no one had really done for them for a number of years, the appreciation started to grow. And I think the fans now realize that was a no-brainer move, even though at the time, an individual player that was fun to watch got moved on, and now the team is, in a position where they've had a bunch of championships and rebuilt the right way. So that was an interesting process, bro.
Yeah, it's one of those things, Bogues, where like, especially if you don't watch anyone else play, like if you just watch your team, and they obviously weren't watching the Milwaukee Bucks all that much, I would assume. And then, I remember Monte, Don Nelson gave him this chance in Golden State. I think I had him on fantasy that year where he was off the coach before, didn't really play him. And I think Don Nelson was the one who sort of gave him his go, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe I am, but I could see why they really liked him. They probably didn't see you play a lot. And then usually it happens this way. When they play for somebody else, you don't really like them. They play for you, and then you start seeing some value. I could see that happen. And plus, you're not a flashy player. He was.
Yeah, I get it. See why. I got it totally.
Yeah.
Like I'm not a highlight guy. Tried to win games and play my role with whatever I needed to do. So I understand the fans' frustration, but that completely backfired on most of those people, which is pretty funny. Within a year, it was, that crowd was then rocking and going crazy. But that's a part of pro sports. It's just something you have to deal with. Like I was, help motivate me a little bit to show what I can do. And I think Joe Lacob, with his $500 million purchase to $10 billion valuation, has also had a pretty good laugh about it as well. So it's all worked out for everyone.
No doubt.
All right, next one.
No doubt.
With the Australian basketball season winding down, a lot of talk is popping up about travel schedules. One team did 6 games in 11 days in 4 states. This seems excessive, but compared to the NBA, it's normal, although the NBA has private jets. Having played in college, NBA, and NBL, how do the travel loads compare between the different leagues, and how does travel affect the players? It's something that players don't mind and only fans use as an excuse. Love the pod, mate. Keep speaking up. Ben from Perth in Australia. Look, the travel does take a toll. It's more the cross-country flights for me in the NBA that killed me. Like, I remember one game, back when Atlanta was balling and they had those 4 or 5 All-Stars and we were balling in the West, we were kind of the 2 number 1 seeds from each conference, and we were flying out to Atlanta to play them. So it was a pretty big game. And they put us on it was basically a cross-country flight. So the way it usually works is the NBA won't send you all the way coast to coast. They'll send you to like the Midwest, and you'll slowly make your way out to the either coast, so you can, not kill yourself with time zone changes. But they put us on a flight, San Francisco to Atlanta, 10 a.m. takeoff. We got to our hotel room basically at 7 p.m., 8 p.m. with the time difference, and then played that next night. And I was still in the Bay Area that next night. I don't know where the hell I was. It was like jet lagged, fatigued. So it does take its toll. That's just the perils of the business. The NBL is a little bit better, although it is commercial. So sometimes whatever the airlines, you get a cancelled flight, weather, you're kind of stuck. Whereas in the NBA, there's a bit more freedom with your own plane. And college for us was pretty tough at times as well, because it was commercial, and we'd be going to a lot of sometimes those smaller schools would kill you because you'd have to take 2 or 3 flights. But now, some colleges have private jets from what I understand. We didn't at the time, but they travel private or charter. But it is what it is. Back in the day before planes, NBA players were taking, buses and trains and whatever they could at times. So, that's just the reality you have to deal with, bro.
Yeah, the travel is great in the NBA without question, but it gets tiring at times, especially with back-to-backs and sleep schedules. The Mavericks, like my last year or two, they would, I think you were with us too at the time, like whenever we played LA or on the like deep West Coast, we would stay the night instead of like finishing the game, flying out and getting back late, really late. Usually you just stay the night and spend the next day. I guess there's the argument, do you sleep in your own bed versus, sleep in your own bed, but you have to travel half the night to get to your own bed, or do you stay at a 5-star hotel's bed, and then fly out the next day? I was in the D League, Bogues, where we were doing commercial, having 6'9" guys, fucking middle seats on Southwest airline flights, getting up at 4:30 a.m. wake up calls. It's not. There are some travels that's pretty rough, man. But like NBA, it depends how you are as a sleeper. You might be a finicky sleeper. You may not care. People are banged up with injuries. It affects them at the end of the year.
Every team's different too. Every team's different.
Yeah.
So Scott Skiles was one that was, he was a fly home at all costs guy. What that means is, so if we played tonight wherever in LA and didn't play again until 4 nights later, he'd still want to fly home after the game to Milwaukee and get there at 2, 3 in the morning and then be in our own bed and be resettled there. And the other part of his strategy, I believe, was he didn't want guys to be out all night. So he thought that after a game, most guys, and this is probably true, after a game, most guys can't get to sleep for 3-4 hours anyway. So you're going to bed late. So why not be on a plane, knock that dead time out, and then you're in your city, and then they're not out on the booze or whatever till 6, 7 a.m. anyway. So there is a strategy to both ways. Steve Kerr and the Golden State Warriors got a sleep specialist in, and they recommended that we stay overnight. And also when we fly out to a city, we then started going straight to the arena to do a practice session off the plane, which I hated because my back would be so tight from the travel. But their thought was that it gets you moving, even though you feel like you're running in mud or dirt, it gets that out before the game the next day. And that kind of makes sense as well. And they have all these specialists for everything now. And I guess at the end of the day, it is the coach's call, and some like it, some hate it.
Yeah, like you said, it depends on the team, but I don't think there's a perfect way to do it, to be honest with you. I think it just sort of, you're always going to have 1 or 2 players, 3 players on a different type of schedule, and it's going to get impacted plus or minus on it. So, fuck it. You deal with it. It
is what it is.
It's better than taking a train, brother.
That's it, or a bus, yeah. All right, I want to finish with story time. So last week we spoke about unruly fans. and some crazy shit that we've seen along the way. So I thought I'd discuss a few of these that I've got, and I don't know if you've got any that you've dealt with while on the NBA circuit. We've heard the baseball story 15 times, so you don't have to tell us that one again in your Jordan sweatsuit.
No, fuck that one.
But I've had a few. One of the craziest ones I had was we played the San Antonio Spurs. It was our first playoff run with the Warriors. We beat Denver in that first round series, played the Spurs the next year, and we should have won the first two games. We were up. I can't even remember what it was. We're up something like 8 points with a minute left in game one and ended up losing and then won game two. So we should have won game one. But I remember we lose game one, like I think Ginobili hit something on the buzzer or close to. And we stayed in San Antonio the next couple of nights because we had game two. And a Spurs fan followed our bus the whole way from the arena. Now, the Spurs arena is pretty far from downtown San Antonio or near any hotels. It's probably a good 20, 30-minute drive at times. It's in the middle of like a random residential area, not the nicest area by any means, but that's where the AT&T Center is, if it's still called that. So some fan followed our car the whole way, 30 minutes, and would drive up and down our bus, honking the horn, flags out the window, flipping us off the whole drive, man, for 30 minutes. We're just like, what the hell is going on? Like, because, most guys are on the bus and their, headphones are on and they're not paying attention and blah, 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 blah. And yeah, this car just honking all the way to the hotel. We got to get off the bus and they're still yelling at us. So that was pretty crazy because our team security was like, shit, is something going to go down? But they were just some passionate, crazy ass fans that just wanted to do something silly. My rookie year, I ended up getting ejected from a game. I was frustrated, not playing well that whole month really, and I get ejected, and as I'm walking out, a fan leans over the stanchion abusing me like, it's too late to show some passion now or something like that. And my first thought was to try and grab him by the collar and punch him in the face, and I was like, oh shit, I can't reach him because he's too high up, because I was like fuming. Right. I was like seeing red, and it was my home team, right? So that was my first foray into flipping a fan off, and it was a home fan of all fans. So of course, ended up getting a $25K fine for that. And the last one I remember was autograph seekers. So with Brandon Jennings, his rookie year, he had that 55-point night. He was blowing up. His star was shining. And in Toronto, they're notorious for following your bus from the arena to the airport, because in Toronto, it's one of the few arenas in the league where you have to go through the commercial entrance to get to your flight.
Oh, the worst. Yeah.
Whereas, because you have to go through passport control and all that bullshit. Whereas in the NBA circuit, our bus literally drives onto the tarmac to the steps of our plane and we get on. So that's how it is for 29 teams. And then 30 in Toronto, you got to go through all that bullshit. So the fans would know this. So we walked through the commercial part, and there was these autograph hunters just irking at Brandon Jennings, just like, oh, sign. And he'd signed a few and then said, that's enough. Like, I'm done. And one guy just kept going at him, walking with him through security. And I was behind Brandon, just kind of letting it unfold. I'm like, dude, he doesn't want to sign, leave him alone. He's like, no, I need this sign. And he grabs Brandon by his backpack. And that was enough for me. So I basically just grabbed him by the scruff of the neck and just missiled him. Just gave me an excuse to throw the dude. And I'm just like, dude, like, don't put your hands on my teammate. And that's probably, the most interaction I've had with NBA fans that kind of went south or were a little strange, but that's kind of what you deal with on a daily basis. And the fact that I interact with them so much on a daily basis to only have 3 or 4 of these stories, I think isn't too bad. But I'm sure you've probably seen some shit before, just walking down hotel lobbies and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, you get all these crazy people trying to get autographs. I told you, like, sometimes I would go, not a lot, but sometimes I'd go out to eat with Doncic, and I told you before, they're getting bad. Like, there's definitely going to be something that happens, like following guys to, following us to go out to eat and having to deal with that. It's a tough one. I'll give you a little bit of funnier story though. We were in New Orleans and we had this drunk fan, like literally right behind our bench. And she was screaming in our ear, like really bad, like literally like it's loudest fan I've ever heard. She was drunk off her ass, screaming behind. So it's me and Sham got our other player development coach at the time. And we were just like, we can't do anything about it. Can't put anything in your ear. You got to deal with it all game. Literally, my ears are bleeding. And I turn around and she's 2 rows behind us. And in one row, she's screaming in this little old lady's ear. And like, I thought, I don't know how she stayed there the whole game. Nice lady. So I turned around after the game. I said, fuck this. I get out of my pocket. I got $100 bill and I gave it to the old lady. I said, I apologize for dealing with what you had to deal with. And I just walked away. And yeah, the story sucked, but the old lady came out with $100. That's the only thing I got.
Yeah. I mean, it just never ends. I think some of these people just,
they think they're part of it. Like, and I get it. Like that's, you live for it, you're drinking a little bit, but like, you're living for it. And they think they're part of it, and they want to banter back and forth. They just want a reaction out of anybody. Now, she wasn't really unruly as far as like talking smack or anything like that, and she was our fan. But like, it's just like it gets to a point where you scream. I'm talking about loudest scream I ever heard for 48 minutes of an NBA game, 2.5 hours basically. And
and that starts fights rough, in the crowd. Not only the player fan aspect and. Someone else says shut up on the old lady's behalf, and then they're drunk. But I'll tell you one guy, we have unruly fans, but the best one, do you remember the guy in Philadelphia with the whiteboard?
Yeah, the whiteboard, yeah.
Oh man,
he had some great
good.
stuff on the whiteboard.
He's good. So there's a guy in Philadelphia, he sits behind an old dude, probably 50, 60 years old, probably 60 years old. He brings his own little whiteboard, like just one of those A4, maybe A3 size whiteboards with a whiteboard marker, and when he sits behind the visiting bench, comes to most games, and he'll sit there and, as there's a timeout, all the bench players are kind of looped around the coach, so we're looking towards the crowd. He'll just write the funniest shit on that whiteboard. Yeah. Like he railed me for my beard, like having a hobo beard one time. He'll rail like I think Dirk got it one time when we were there with Dallas about his age, like, should be in retirement. Just really funny, quirky stuff.
Yeah.
Borderline offensive, like banter offensive, but not derogatory in a way like this. He's not, and that's great. I love that kind of stuff. And you don't like it to be about you at times, but that guy's great because he's a spectacle within himself. He doesn't say a word, and then he'll draw whatever he draws or writes, and just holds it under his chin, staring at you. Just like this guy's nuts, and it's funny, right? Like that kind of stuff you love, but it's once it escalates and there could be an altercation or abuse, that's when you want to draw the line.
Yeah, I've seen some crazy things like, and actually a fan died at a Portland game. It was the same night that Wesley Matthews tore his Achilles for Portland, not for us yet. And a fan like across the court from our bench, like 15 rows up, died. Had a heart attack and a long-time season ticket holder. Like during our game, they had to grab her and they wheeled her across the court. And she died that night. I mean, you just see some crazy stuff sometimes in games, but the unruly fan thing is rough. You see, people throwing things, not as bad as Europe, of course, where they're throwing them with firecrackers and stuff, but like it gets a little rough. That guy in Philly is fantastic with the whiteboard though. He writes some funny shit.
Yeah, that's probably you and I when we're 60.
Without question.
Going to sporting games, but that wraps up episode 23. Thanks everyone for listening. Thanks, bro, for joining us. Like, subscribe at Hoop Consultants and at Rogue Bogues on all your social media platforms. Thanks.